had an awesome day at Turning Point? You got the President of the United States. How did he do this morning? And how great is this country that we get to live in? I will say something unapologetically, without regret. I believe that we live in the greatest nation ever on earth. There's nothing for us to apologize for. Things are different now. When I first came to Congress, President Obama was in office, and he and Secretary Kerry would travel around the world apologizing for America's greatness. There's nothing for us to apologize for. Freedoms and liberties for the world to emulate. We're a young country. Go through some growing pains along the way, but there's so much that is going so well. And even though we might be able to turn on the news or go on to certain websites or social media, and they'll be trying to convince us that things aren't going well in this country, the fact is the economy is ripping. ISIS is nearly wiped off the map. The president withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal. He moved the embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. He signed the Taylor Force Act into law. Recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, strengthened our military. We're doing a better job taking care of our veterans. That list goes on and on. America is great, and it's getting greater. But we have a challenge. I believe it's a warning shot. Now, I'm from New York. I know there was a question that was just asked about AOC's district. Well, I'll tell you, I'm a conservative Republican from New York who gets elected and reelected without any apologies for my beliefs. But in New York, we have one-party rule. They recently just gave free driver's licenses to anyone who's illegal in our country. If you're not here legally, you now can get a driver's license in New York. They expanded tuition aid for people who are not here in our country legally. Now, let's say you are a hardworking, blue-collar, middle-income New Yorker struggling to make ends meet, and you want to be able to afford to go to college, but you're making just a little bit too much in order to qualify for that tuition aid. Don't you think that in Albany, those politicians in New York should be, if they want to expand the amount of aid that's available, be expanding it to the people who are here in our country legally, who can't afford to get into college otherwise, instead of taking that limited pot and giving it to people who are not here legally? Well, in New York State, they want to go one step further. Now, not only can you get a driver's license if you're here illegally, they're going to pass a new law that will automatically register you to vote. And the way they drafted their bill made it, instead of opting in to register to vote, you have to opt out, and the bill specifically stated, it was like a weird, badly worded bill that said you can't opt out if you're not in our country legally. What? Now, we know of people in my district who are not in our country legally, have not only successfully registered to vote, but have actually voted. I've seen the documentation. The only reason why we found out about all of these people is because when you go through the citizenship process, they filed paperwork with the local board of elections asking to be removed from the voter rolls. In order for them to become citizens, they have to get themselves removed from the voting rolls. And then you go back and you look at their record, and they voted in countless primaries and general elections. And I know of races in my district where a local mayoral race ended in a tie. I know a county legislative race where the person who won by 17 votes. This issue matters. We have a great country. We need to protect the integrity of the process. And there's a warning shot right now here in Washington. When you see AOC or Omar or Tlaib get into the speaker's chair presiding over the chamber, and they're called Madam Speaker, close your eyes and think of what one-party rule in Washington, in this country, would look like. January 2021, if we don't do our part between now and then. And as they pander for votes, they'll promise you free everything. Free housing, free education, free health care, including people who are not here legally. Some offer you stipends. They're going to give you free money. Free. Listen, I can get all sorts of votes back home in my district if I want to go to some of these groups and promise them free everything. Vote for me and I'll give you everything for free. But I won't do that. I lose votes because of that, because I'm unwilling to say those things. These people support this thing called the BDS movement. There's going to be a vote in the House floor at 6:30 today. There's going to be a vote at 6:30 p.m. to oppose the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. And I think that every member of the House, regardless of whether you're Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, should be standing up in opposition to this movement filled with anti-Semitic and anti-Israel hate. I hear stories from coast-to-coast college campuses of students at UC Berkeley, University of Michigan, Columbia. I heard a story from Georgetown. I heard a story from NYU. Coast-to-coast of college students being targeted with blatant anti-Semitism in the name of BDS. The founder of BDS was openly anti-Semitic. Just read his quotes. Just take his own words. It's impossible to deny. Why is it that the BDS movement won't distance itself from Hamas? Why is it that individuals who are in senior levels of the BDS movement, they individually refuse to distance themselves from Hamas? 2 Fridays ago, a senior member of Hamas called for the murder of every Jew in the world. You want to say that this is a non-violent movement? You want to compare it to the Boston Tea Party or the Civil Rights Movement, and you won't speak out and condemn Hamas and these individuals? Hamas, by the way, is a designated foreign terrorist organization. Hezbollah is a designated foreign terrorist organization. Our foreign policy now is one, once again, strengthening our relationships with friends and treating our adversaries as our adversaries. Understanding our adversaries do not respect weakness, they only respect strength. There are 4 instruments of national power. It's called the DIME principle: diplomacy, information, military, and economics. To make your diplomacy, information, and economic instruments of national power stronger, it's good to have a military option on the table in order to not have to use it. And people, once again, are starting to respect the United States of America again, because we are standing up to adversaries. That Iran nuclear deal was fatally flawed for what was in it. It was fatally flawed for what wasn't in it, giving up to $150 billion to the Iranians to use on activities to build a land bridge across the Middle East to the Mediterranean. It's good that the president withdrew from it. I remember asking about this $1.7 billion that was sent on pallets of cash to the Iranians. They said it was not a ransom payment, even though the money had to arrive at the same exact moment on the tarmac as American hostages getting released. And if the money doesn't land, the Iranians won't let our American hostages to be released. And Obama said it's not a ransom payment. People from the White House called it a coincidence. They think we're idiots. But this is a room filled with smart young Americans ready to take over this country and put us in the right direction and to stand up to those lies. We can't back down. We can't lose. Losing is not an option. And don't let anyone tell you that you have to wait for your turn to stand up. You're here in our nation's capital. No one can stop you from being here. You're here to take back your country, and you are not going to turn it over to anyone who wants to set us in the wrong direction. I hear of America first, and I hear of blame America first. And I choose to have our priorities in place, unapologetically, without regret, believing in American exceptionalism, loving our military, loving our veterans, loving our flag and our freedom and our Constitution and our liberties. We're willing to fight for it at any cost. And that's why you're here. Yeah, I look at it as a warning shot right now. When I see that Green New Deal get proposed, or Medicare for all, and no concern at the massive tens of trillions of dollar price tag. What happens if they actually took over? I serve on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and I was the first member of Congress to oppose Ilhan Omar's appointment to the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And listen, when you get appointed to one of these committees, it's not just a reflection of your values, it's a reflection of the values of the people who appointed you to that committee in the first place. If I wanted to raise everybody's taxes and I went to House Republican leadership and asked to be put on the House Ways and Means Committee, they're not going to appoint me to that committee. If I wanted to hamstring our military, tie the hands behind the backs of our generals and our admirals, reduce troop strength and weaken our military to a point where, let's say, we're back to pre-World War II troop strength levels, the House Republican Steering Committee is not going to appoint me to the House Armed Services Committee. It is a reflection not only of our values, but also the values of the people who appoint you to these positions in the first place. And that is a member of Congress, and I'll say this without apology. I believe, some people believe the right play call, Speaker Pelosi is one of them, that the right play call here is to ignore it. They're new members, they're learning, they don't mean what they say. We can get them to apologize, and we'll be able to move on. It's a moment to learn. I believe it needs to be identified, confronted, and crushed. That's my opinion. For the anti-Semitism, and by the way, there is no other way to sugarcoat it. It is anti-Semitism. When you say that Israel has hypnotized the world, may Allah awaken the people to Israel. Or when you say that if you support Israel, that you've been bought off by Jews, or you have pledged allegiance to a foreign power. Put aside all of the pro-BDS, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic hatred, talking about blame America first, with the suffering of the Venezuelan people. She blames American foreign policy. She's requested leniency for ISIS fighters. She blamed American foreign policy for the al-Shabaab attack in Kenya. That list goes on. And I don't believe, regardless of anyone's race, religion, gender, any of that, what we stand for here is on the merit of the principles, the policies, the actual substantive debate, because we know we're right and we know we can win. And they've got nothing on you. They have nothing on you because you focus on the merits, you focus on the substance, and they immediately say, regardless of whether or not you bring up, and you don't bring up race, religion, or gender, they will call you a racist, a sexist, and an Islamophobe. But you know what? We cannot be bullied. They would like to identify, confront, and crush us, but losing is not an option for this great country. So at 6:30, there'll be a vote on the floor of the House of Representatives to oppose BDS. Let's see who's willing to stand with our nation's great ally and do the right thing. There's a lot of work that's still ahead of us, and even though I'm identifying some challenges that are in front of us, and there are some big ones, we also are going to, I'm confident of it, are going to just continue to come through these moments stronger than we've ever been before. And it's not because of me. It's not because of anyone else in Congress down the street. It's because you are here with so much love that is filling your heart for America. And you're willing to take that mantle and run with it for my kids and for their kids. I might be looking at future senators and governors and congressmen and CEOs and others who are going to continue to make America even greater. It is an honor and a privilege to be able to represent you here in Washington. It is a great privilege for me to be in your company today. And for every person who's been on this stage throughout this long day, and you have had a long day, every single person who's been here on this stage has had an incredible opportunity to look at all of you in the eye and be able to walk off this stage with a heart that is more filled and warmer than it was when we started our day today. And it's not because of us, it's because of each and every one of you. Turning Point, your love for America, and your love for this flag. So thank you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your patriotism, your love of country, your determination to fight for it, and your unwillingness to lose to those who want to take it away. All right, we have 5 minutes, so who wants to ask any questions? Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I wanted to thank you so much for your pro-BDS words. Thank you, it means a lot. I have 2 questions, but my first one is with Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, they're going to be making a trip to Israel soon to see the occupation for themselves. What do you think the outcome of this trip will be, and do you think it was right of Prime Minister Netanyahu to let them come?
Yeah, and it's good that you used air quotes there with the word occupation, because the other side, that's what they like to claim, that Israel's occupying. And that's just divorced from so much reality of the situation in Gaza and Judea and Samaria, otherwise known as the West Bank, which, by the way, just over a decade ago, Israel offered to withdraw from 93% of Judea and Samaria, the West Bank. And it was the Palestinians who refused. As far as Bibi's decision, Israel is not going to ever say no to a visa for a United States member of Congress who goes to visit. But I'll tell you what, it's filled with so much hypocrisy that the same exact day that you are going to proclaim nationally and internationally that you are in full passionate support of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, that you're going to Israel. And you probably, about 20 times during that day on your phone, using Israeli technology to help you go from point A to point B and communicating with your friends and with your constituents. So there's a lot of hypocrisy that needs to be called out of this boycott movement as well. But I think Bibi, he made the right move. He's going to handle the visit smartly, I'm sure of it.
I'm Noah France. I'm from Virginia, and I just wanted to ask, thank you, what are you doing in your district to crack down on illegal immigration?
We need to prioritize, and by the way, ICE prioritizes going after the worst of the worst. And the left wants to vilify this administration, claiming as if their priorities are not intact as it relates to combating illegal immigration. But if you care about combating gang violence and drug trafficking and human trafficking, sex trafficking, if you want to improve public safety in your community, you can't at the same time call for abolishing ICE and calling them thugs as Governor Cuomo did, or wanting to defund DHS or go after Customs and Border Protection. But what we have seen a lot of progress since January of 2017 when this new administration came in is combating MS-13 and combating drug trafficking and human trafficking and sex trafficking. They're going after murderers and rapists. But I'll tell you what, every nation's backbone is its rule of law. And a nation without borders is no nation at all. And the president isn't proposing a 30-foot wall from one coast to the next. Part of our border has water, natural barriers, or the Huachuca Mountains. I was stationed at Fort Huachuca, Arizona, on the border with Mexico, in a several thousand-foot mountain. By the way, the wrong mountain. These illegal immigrants would come over that mountain, and on the other side is the home of the United States Army Intelligence Center, testing our newest products, and a Customs and Border Protection office ready to send you back to where you came from. In our district, our priority has been going after gang violence and some of the activities that support gang violence, and ensuring that they have the resources, all levels of government working together, all levels of law enforcement working together. I ran against someone in 2018 who said that we need to cut off all coordination and cooperation between ICE and our local law enforcement. I have the opposite view of things. There should be more coordination and cooperation between law enforcement at all levels. So we need more of that, not less. And we've seen a lot of progress back home where I'm from. Last question?
This is going to be the last, yeah.
Hey, Congressman, how are you? Kevin Grigera here from Westchester, New York.
I have a question. What are your hopes of turning New York back into a red state, given the fact that, most people are centered in the city, and that's what pretty much makes New York a blue state? But that's a myth, because only about a third of the people in the city can actually vote. I think that's a leftist myth that's been spread around, so people are not incentivized to go out and vote. And I truly believe that if we actually can get people out there, especially in the north of New York, we can actually bring it back into a red state. What do you think we can do about that?
Honestly, my hopes are in you. It's in that next generation. It's in what Turning Point is doing when you have events like this. We went from 14 House Republicans in California to 7 last election. We went from 5 House Republicans in New Jersey to 1. We went from 9 House Republicans in New York to 6. If we want to keep Nancy Pelosi from staying as Speaker, we're going to have to win these districts in places like New York, like New Jersey, like California. And all the hopes are on you. If you're willing to make the calls when Turning Point has the mobilizations, if you're willing to knock on the doors, and some people are willing to make thousands of calls and others are willing to knock on thousands of doors, that's going to be the difference. Last time New York State elected a new Republican statewide was 25 years ago. It's been a long time. And we can't just expect all of it to turn in one election, the next election that might be coming up in November of 2019 or November of 2020. But we have to turn the tide, because the pendulum is swinging in the wrong direction. And before you know it, if we don't heed the warning and we don't do something about it, they're going to be in charge in Washington, just like we see them in charge in these state capitals. We need to register people to vote, and we need to actually get them out to vote the right way. We need more integrity in the process, and we need to turn the tide. This is a turning point. I hope you had a great day. Thank you for having me. God bless America.